Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernier Bus Show. Today we're going to talk about the forbidden fruit of freedom. We're going to make sure that you understand how strongly the deck is stacked against freedom for especially the American worker. So we're going to jump back into the revolution televised and show you some footage that corporate news has hidden from you. And also the sentiment of this protest here. It's shocking. It's terrifying that this event in Philadelphia in 2016 happened out in the streets, and none of us have really seen it unless we were there. And even now, even those who were there, the memory is fading. Let me show you a little bit of the convention.
It wasn't just Bernie Sanders who left the Democratic Party that night. Over 500 delegates walked out before Hillary's speech started. Almost 1 million people announced their divorce from the Democratic Party online. This is what you didn't see on television.
Thank you for that amazing welcome. Thank you all for the great convention that we've had. And I want to thank Bernie Sanders. Bernie, your campaign inspired millions of Americans. You put economic and social justice issues front and center where they belong. We all know the story, but we usually focus on how it turned out, and not enough on how close that story came to never being written at all.
Now, at this point, probably for copyright reasons, the sound cuts out for a while. But look at these images. I had no idea this was going on. You've got the kind of movement that we need if voting doesn't work. I have a feeling that this is where the Bernie or Bust movement is headed. I tiptoe around that idea. I mean, sometimes I wade in with both feet, but if you look at what's going on here, if you look at how people reacted to the cheating, the open rigging of the process, and if they're willing to do that, that's where our democracy can have some life. I'm going to come back to this footage, but I just want to give you this image, people pushing on the gates, people rattling the cage, people with hundreds and hundreds of police officers guarding democracy from its people. Now, why? And let's look at Hillary's part in what. Well, look at this little picture first. We can't do it. Single-payer health care. Look at on the bottom, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, CBS, Deutsche Bank, UBS, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, and on and on. This is why we can't do it. Single-payer health care, break up the big banks, money out of politics, free college tuition, rich pay their fair share of taxes. No, we can't. So Hillary's there talking about the story that almost never was told. She's talking about freedom and prosperity for the American working class. No, we can't. That's where that gate, that's what that gate symbolizes to me. The workers are trying to get their just rewards, their fair share of profits, and Hillary's going crazy now. And if you think about regime change wars and how they fit in, a lot of the profits of these big companies are based in the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. So there's money tied to all these things, and the money is why we can't do this. That's why we have incrementalism, to keep the workers from protesting, but to never ever deliver on the promises that Bernie has been making. So this is why Hillary Clinton smeared Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein lately and called them Russian agents.
Come to embody, especially being against the regime change wars that Hillary Clinton has started and represents. And I'm wondering if, this attack on Tulsi Gabbard coming in the aftermath of Trump's withdrawal from Syria, and Trump in the aftermath of that has tried to portray himself as the anti-war candidate again, even though in reality he is far from it. And I couldn't help but thinking today if this attack on Tulsi Gabbard was sort of designed to, basically send a message to any Democrat wanting to take the reins of the anti-war message from Trump and to say, no, actually, we're the party that stands for being against regime change war.
That's what's going on, because Bernie is the anti-war candidate. And so Tulsi makes these points. You're going to see the analysis, but they're sending a message straight to Bernie and straight to us, his supporters. No, we can't do that. If you talk about an end to regime change war, you're going to come up against police. You're going to come up against military. You're going to come up against gates and dogs and mace. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take us pouring into the streets to take down the people that want military industrial complex to rule us. We have to take these assholes out. And it may be, and I'm going to go back to the footage at the end of this show so you can see even more what it will take to get our democracy back.
And we're not going to be supporting things like the Saudi war on Yemen like Trump is, or warmongering against Iran, or imposing murderous sanctions on Venezuela. If going after Tulsi and smearing her as a Russian agent and her anti-war views being a result of having ties to Russia or sympathies with Russia, if that is at play here as well.
Well, it's the rhetorical basis for Hillary Clinton's smear was established during the past 2 years when anyone who challenged the imperatives of the national security state in places like Syria or Venezuela, where the proxy war is playing out between the U.S. and Russia, although, it's not purely a proxy war, but it's seen that way in Washington, is accused of echoing Kremlin propaganda. And so we saw that narrative weaponized against Tulsi Gabbard after the last debate. I've never seen such a meltdown among, Beltway and Democratic establishment hacks over a minor protest candidate who's polling at 2% as the one I saw against Tulsi Gabbard, Susan Glasser from Politico, who's, just the quintessential centrist hack who's married to Peter Baker, the New York Times White House correspondent, said that Tulsi Gabbard was echoing Russian and Syrian talking points by condemning regime change wars. This is, something that only the real cranks of the Republican Party would have said about opponents of the Iraq War. Now it's coming out of the political center. Josh Marshall, founder of Talking Points Memo, which all of the kind of, Democratic wonks wake up every morning and read. He said the only thing that Tulsi Gabbard can do is shut the F up. I mean, that was his response to her. It's like she inspires this kind of visceral outrage by condemning regime change wars. And one after another, they accuse her of echoing Russian talking points. So now, championing the cause of peace, withdrawing U.S. troops, withdrawing U.S. bases from a hinterland in northern Syria is it's the Russian agenda. And this is something I've never heard in my lifetime since I was kind of like a sentient being following politics. But it's something that I read about in books about McCarthyism, and it really appears to have so infested the mainstream of the Democratic Party that we're going to be living with it for the rest of our lives. Why? because the world is changing before us, and Russia and China are forming a bloc against U.S. unipolarism. And it was in the 90s when the unipolar moment of kind of imperial bliss consumed the Beltway political class, and Bill Clinton was in power to enjoy that moment. So everyone in the Democratic establishment who supported Hillary Clinton's 2016 run, they're nostalgic for that moment. And Putin and Xi are basically ruining it by pushing back against the U.S. in these areas where the U.S. is an extremely toxic presence. And that's what's kind of playing out in our politics. And so many of the people who are leveling these attacks, they really have skin in the game. They really believe in the U.S. as a benevolent imperial force. Tulsi Gabbard, just with a few kind of interruptions in the debate, has managed to kind of just disrupt the narrative that Bernie Sanders actually failed to disrupt in 2016. He wasn't as focused on foreign policy. By challenging sanctions, Tulsi Gabbard does that. And so, yes, I agree with you. They're trying to make an example of her the same way they've tried to make an example of us, Aaron, in media. It's the same tactic to try to prevent other young journalists from following in our footsteps and taking up this mantle of challenging empire.
I'm not a young journalist by any means, but I'm trying to take up this mantle, and I hope you'll take it up with me. We need to get the word out. They don't want this word to get out. If you saw any of the footage from Philadelphia, I'll be surprised. If you saw the protests in the street, if you saw the remarks Hillary made thanking Bernie Sanders, that was ugly stuff. I want to take a moment here and laugh at the writer of this article. EON, whoever you are, regrets it, and a warning to Bernie or bust. This is very snarky. A proportion of Leave voters in the Brexit were voting Leave as a protest against the establishment. They never thought that Leave would pass. That's just ridiculous and dangerous. The point of this article is to equate the Brexit voters who did it for hipster, fashionable reasons because they never thought it would happen, to Bernie or bust voters. But if you've watched my show for a while, you'll see why I'm going to laugh in this writer's face. One voter, Adam from Manchester, told the BBC, "My vote, I didn't think was going to matter too much because I thought we were just going to remain. The David Cameron resignation has blown me away, to be honest. I think the period of uncertainty we're going to have for the next few months has been magnified, so I'm quite worried." They could say that about Trump. And then she quotes Susan Sarandon here. "I don't know. I'm going to see what happens. Some people feel Donald Trump will bring the revolution immediately if he gets in. Then things will really, explode. I wish that had happened." And then I don't know if it's a he or she, but the writer says, "Imbecile. Oh, wait, that's not a Brexit voter. That's Susan Sarandon, high priestess of the Bernie or bust movement." I hope Susan Sarandon takes that mantle up again, high priestess of the Bernie or bust movement, because it's going to take this kind of ire. It's going to take people waking up. And so what the part, you can laugh along with me, the part that's silly, she or he doesn't understand the math of the Bernie or bust movement. You can't just call off all these protesters. It's like being out in the streets with the protesters and yelling at them and saying, you're all being so silly. You need to stop your temper tantrums. You need to go home now and just let the powers do what they want to do. And it's not going to happen. You can't call off the Bernie or bust movement. This is going somewhere, whether the media cover it or not. And I just hope that we'll join. I hope Susan will come back into it. Now, this particular show, the Bernie or Bust television station and show, is being throttled. This is my Medium friends link to all the shows in one place. So I'm going to link to that again. I have been linking to it under the Bernie or Bust show episodes. This is Irene Burns. "I'm really pissed at YouTube for not giving me these notifications. I have to go through this link to watch and can't comment without logging in. Fuck YouTube. And I said, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook really don't like what I'm saying. And I've given you evidence in previous episodes of how they keep anybody from finding the messages I'm trying to deliver on Facebook, definitely on Twitter, since my account's been suspended on Twitter and on YouTube. I know, it's really pissing me off. I have to find your channel or come directly here when I have all notifications on. Censorship. That friggin' corporate eye. It's fascist book. We should call it fascist book, and I don't know what we should call YouTube and Twitter, but they're owned by the same people who are losing their shit over the Bernie or Bust movement, over getting the word out, over Tulsi Gabbard daring to talk about regime change war as a bad thing. It's if Bernie stands up and disrupts things the way Tulsi has been, you know what's going to happen. And the only antidote probably is going to be this.
A 100 more cops were dispatched.
We didn't know about this. We didn't see this. But this is what it's going to take.
It didn't look good for the protesters, but they would get one last chance. New allies were on their way. Black Lives Matter arrived in the nick of time and had a plan to finally get their message on air. Block off the highway.
Black Lives Matter tried to block off the highway. You didn't see that on the news.
They were tired of being ignored. They were stopped before they could block Interstate 76. But it didn't matter.
Allies in there, people who are Bernie, who have the love, who can transform and bring it. So you know what? They're not coming with us anyways. So let's let them go and say peace to you. Peace to you. Bring love. Show them love. Show them what you understand. Try to get to them. As for me, fuck the Democrats. I'm done. But always, thank you, Bernie Sanders. Thank you, Bernie Sanders.
They held a solemn funeral for their old friend and the Wells Fargo Center's latest casualty, their democracy. Its coffin had been carried on the backs of the working class, and now it would be buried in a fitting place in Franklin Delano Roosevelt Park. The media may have missed the story, but it happened.
It happened.
Unlike the divided Democrats and Republicans, this resilient protest movement was the only party unity that had manifested itself. These heroic activists were the future of this country.
They are the future of this country. These activists are the future of this country. If we can get together, if we can galvanize this movement, share this message, and people will get riled up again. You know it's coming. You just wait. February is just around the corner. And they're going to rig it again. They have all these candidates that are running against Bernie. And other than Tulsi and possibly Andrew Yang, they're all Hillary people. They're all part of the Hillary establishment. And if it goes to the second round, they're going to do the same thing. And you're going to have bigger protests this time than last time. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in Milwaukee. I'm going to make sure. I'm going to watch over what's going on. I don't trust anybody to tell me the story. I'm going to see it with my own eyes. And I hope you'll go too. And I hope that if this kind of shenanigan happens again, that we'll be there to raise our fists in protest. And who knows what'll happen after that. hopefully it won't happen, but we have to get the word out to the comfortable Democrats that we're not going away. You can't just ridicule us or mock us or call us Russian bots or whatever else you want to do. Our democracy is at stake. We need to take to the streets when it's time. In the meantime, we need to share these messages with as many people as possible. Keep it in their faces all the way to February. And if there's a chance, we'll get Bernie nominated in the first round. But that's, at this point, it's a pipe dream. I'm not expecting that. So, in the meantime, keep our spirits up. Keep on burning. Keep on enjoying our families. Keep on enjoying whatever shitty jobs we have. Hopefully they won't get shittier. Keep being sympathetic to your fellow workers. Keep being sympathetic to everyone, whatever their race, whatever their gender, whatever their sexual orientation. Be kind and realize that we're all in this together. It's not one person, it's all of us. And together we can get this done. So keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernie bus train. Come get on board the Bernie bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back.